Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Sustainable Times EIS Forum. I'm Daisy Mole, I'm the editorial manager here, and I'm delighted to be hosting you all this evening. I'd like to start off with a brief apology about the queue. We didn't realise how popular we are, so if you're waiting, you've come to the right place. I'd also like to offer a second welcome this evening, and that is to the Anthropocene. It marks a new shift to a geological era shaped by us. For the first time in history, human activity has become the dominant force influencing the world's climate and ecosystems, which means the actions that we take and the decisions we're making matter more today than ever before. It's unsurprising that in this time, the financial landscape has undergone profound change. Today, 90% of S&P 500 companies publish ESG reports. And with the sustainable investment market now valued at £26 trillion, the question is no longer whether sustainability matters in finance, but how to harness its full potential. While studying for my geography degree, I often found myself wondering how all this climate data, this theory, these models, and the physics we were made to absorb actually lead to a more sustainable world. Where was the bridge between knowledge and action? I couldn't see it. Today, I continue to search for that answer, not alone, but alongside people who are building it in real time. The tenacity, drive, and innovation I see in the founders we work with every day is a daily reminder that real solutions aren't just possible, but they're already underway. And everyone in this room is part of that momentum. I always get excited being around people who share my enthusiasm for this space, and tonight is a chance to all come together. It's about sharing sustainable investment opportunities, giving you the chance to ask your own questions, and joining the conversation. So, how is this evening going to support all of this? Tonight, we will commence with a fireside chat with myself in conversation with Mishcon Reya, a prominent law firm who will provide insights into how they're supporting purpose-driven startups and innovation. Following that discussion, the four companies who have all come here for tonight will be presenting. They are Roarsome, Iris Solar, Granyt, and Carnot Engines. Each pitch will last 5 minutes, and we've allowed 5 minutes of questions. I only ask that we keep them concise, and we've allowed networking time for those longer discussions. The evening will conclude with a session on the benefits of EIS investing with the CEO and founder of Sustainable Wealth Group, alongside Hare from the EIS Association. Following that panel, we will all transition to the networking area, where you will have the opportunity to engage directly with tonight's founders. You will see little flags so you'll know where they are, but if you can't find them, we have members from Sustainable Wealth Group and Sustainable Times in attendance, and they will be happy to talk to you and direct you to where to go. Lastly, I'd like to thank our sponsors, Mishcon Reya, EQ Investors, and Aqualibra, all of whom you'll also find in the networking area. I will now pass on to Stuart Hall, our Managing Director, who will be telling you about the current developments at Sustainable Times. And all I have to say is that I hope you have a wonderful evening.
Thanks, Daisy. I'm Stuart, Managing Director of Sustainable Times, and I'm here to tell you about what's been happening over the last few months. So behind the scenes, we've been working hard to separate Sustainable Times and launch Sustainable Wealth Group, our funding arm. Sustainable Times is now standing on its own as a dedicated media and intelligence platform. This separation will allow us to better serve our audiences of founders and investors and help us bring together both in our sustainable community. Sustainable Wealth Group continues to support investors with direct access to EIS-eligible impact-driven opportunities. Sustainable Times, by contrast, becomes the platform that builds the trust, engagement, and data that drives those opportunities forward. We're not just a media brand, we're building something a bit more ambitious. A dynamic membership platform for investors and founders, a space where insights, opportunity, and community come together online, supported by a series of live events. We're also developing an AI-powered EIS directory alongside the membership platform, a tool enabling investors to intelligently discover and compare companies, and for founders, position themselves a little bit more strategically. This will help us create deal flow that is smarter, warmer, and more targeted for all. I mentioned the live events, like this evening, where we can bring our community together under one roof. To take this a step further, we have just launched the Sustainable Time Awards, the RISE Awards. Celebrating innovation and impact across the sustainable ecosystem, entries are now open, and we've already seen engagement from both investors and founders who want to be part of something that goes beyond funding and into recognition and storytelling. Looking further ahead, we've just returned from a series of site visits and are planning a 2-day sustainable investment conference in 2026. This will be hosted in Brighton. This flagship destination event will bring together founders, investors, institutions, and media to connect, showcase, and activate capital around sustainability. Before I wrap up, I want to take a moment to thank Harvey for the foundations that have been put in place. Without the hard work of him and the team, we couldn't take this forward. I also want to ask you all just to put your hands together to give Ellie, Steve, Georgina, and our host Daisy a round of applause. This is our biggest event to date, and the team have done an amazing job over the last few weeks to bring us all together this evening. Now, I'm sure you're wondering, how can I be part of this fantastic opportunity? And as you would expect, we have our own EIS funding system in place, so please come and speak to me or one of the guys at Sustainable Wealth Group, and we'd be more than happy to answer your questions. So before I pass back on to Daisy, I'm just going to play a quick video.
We will begin tonight's evening with a panel with our sponsors, Mishcon and Reya, and I'd like to invite to the stage Charlie Fletcher and Alexander Rhodes. So, we are beginning this evening with our first panel discussion, and I'm delighted to be joined with Charlie and Alex. Mishcon and Reya is an independent law firm that has grown rapidly in the last few years. They have offices in London, Oxford, Cambridge, Singapore, and Hong Kong. Their work covers 7 core practice areas: corporate, dispute resolution, employment, impact, innovation, private, and real estate. But tonight we're really going to be focusing on that innovation and impact space. So joining me is Charlie Fletcher. He brings 20 years of experience across the venture capital ecosystem, and his practice has focused on a broad range of transactional work, including M&A, corporate advisory, equity, and debt fundraising. He's known as the go-to lawyer for navigating complex situations, often the ones that require a little creative flair or a strategic touch. Also joining us this evening, we have Alexander Rhodes, who is partner at Mishcon and Reya and head of Mishcon Purpose. He provides strategic, environmental, social, and governance advice and purpose-driven insight to help clients navigate the opportunities and risks presented by our rapidly changing world. He is also a fellow of the Royal Geographic Society and a conservation of the Zoological Society of London. So this evening, we're going to start off this panel discussion talking about the present state of the venture capital market. So Charlie, it would be brilliant if we could just begin by looking at Mishcon's role in how they support access and investment into sustainable businesses.
Thanks so much, Daisy. And I'd like to start by paying tribute to everything that you've been doing at Sustainable Times and Sustainable Wealth. You ask, where is the bridge between knowledge and action? The answer's right here in this room, and we aspire to be part of that. So thank you for the generous introduction. Thank you all for being patient with the advertorial. And I'd also like to pay tribute as well to the true heroes in the room, who are the intrepid entrepreneurs who will be pitching for funding later. So in terms of our role, we see ourselves as an intrinsic part of the community of change makers, innovators, people doing amazing things. So what that means specifically is we act every year for entrepreneurs, companies who are bringing forward innovation, and investors in those companies. And that investment ranges from family and friends investments to, we worked on the largest Series C round in Europe last year, over £1 billion put into Wave, an electric vehicles company. And we try and do that as trusted partners and advisors who will genuinely not bore you with legal analysis, but say, look, here's what you do. We see enough of these deals. We can tell you exactly what the right approach is. It's particularly pertinent that you ask this now with individuals who are investors or maybe considering investing in emerging companies in the room, because it's been hard times in the investment world. There was a big decline in valuations in 2021, and amidst something of a retrenchment in venture capital, innovation has not slowed. So now is a great time to be investing in innovation. Valuations are down, but actually that should only be a spur on to look at investment opportunities. In particular, AI is really changing the landscape in a whole variety of sectors, but especially in sustainability.
And you guys released, where you are very familiar in the space, last year you released a fundraising report looking at some of the trends. And you've mentioned AI there, and you've kind of mentioned that you think that innovation is still really going forward. What other things did that report highlight that you think could be valuable to a room like this?
Yeah, so in our 2024 calendar year, we worked on over 180 fundraising deals of all sizes, which raised a huge amount of money in aggregate. But some of the trends were investors are being more circumspect. People are doing a more thorough job on due diligence. People are being more careful around valuation. So investors are looking at ways to de-risk their investments insofar as they can via due diligence or via some de-risking terms in their investment terms. But actually, there's just as much money going into space as there was before. And in fact, in 2024, we were up year on year, even excluding the Wave deal, by over 20% on the previous year. And that suggests that people really recognize the opportunity. And actually, there were new entrants in the space, people who maybe never would have invested in emerging technology in the past. Family offices, private wealth, angel investors are really stepping up to the plate.
Thank you very much, Charlie, for giving those insights. And we are talking about an evolving landscape here, and sustainability has gone through peaks and troughs, as investment into any space has. Alex, it'd be great to get your insights in the last kind of 30 years. I know you've not been practicing for that long, but where you've seen investor priorities and market dynamics kind of evolve.
Daisy, what a kick.
Good start.
I lost my hair very young. Look, I mean, this wouldn't have been going on 30 years ago. You opened up by saying that, today over 90% of the S&P 500 companies publish ESG reports. Sustainability wasn't really a thing in investing in 1995. So what's the journey that investing and sustainability have gone on hand in hand? I think it's really as sustainability has become better understood as something that matters in our lives. If you look at the World Economic Forum's Risk Perceptions Index, for the last 3 years, the top 3 risks, both short-term and long-term, have been environmental risks, climate dramatic, unpredictable weather and biodiversity loss. So that trend and that understanding of where the risk sits has reflected, I think, approaches in investment. In 1995, you may have had a few people thinking about exclusions. Let's not invest in these things for ethical or value-led reasons. Today, really understanding what the right questions to ask are in relation to an investment strategy completely underpins the drive to alpha, completely underpins understanding risk in what you're investing in. And that, I think the other thing I would just say is that also reflects a change in what makes up value in companies. 30 years ago, well, certainly 25 years ago, over 70% of the value of that S&P 500 index will have been tangible assets. Right? Today, it's the inverse. That massive predominant is in intangible assets. And that is all directly related to and really seriously affected by these environmental, these social, and these governance factors.
It's very interesting hearing that kind of summary, very quick fire stop of how attitudes especially is probably the biggest change really in that time. Where we see value being placed is on things wider than only profit. Could you give advice to founders who are trying to convey their message to people who aren't convinced yet? What advice would you give to help them connect with the investors and tell them why it's so important?
Yeah. The business that I set up within the firm is called Mishcon Purpose, and that really comes from the importance that we place on the purpose of a business. I think what you're, as a founder, what you're wanting to communicate to your investors needs to have integrity to it, of course. And so it comes down to understanding what actually matters to your business. If you look at the way that the regulations are developing, particularly in Europe, interestingly also in the Chinese Stock Exchange, the process that one's being pushed towards is one now called double materiality assessment, and many of you will be familiar with that. But largely, it's a process by which you say, what are the external factors in the world that are going to impact the value of my business? That's the outside-in bit. The second bit is to say, well, what are the impacts that my business is going to have on the world? That's the inside-out piece. And the reason that the regulations, the European regulations, are beginning to drive larger companies to having a mandatory approach to running this process is because it makes those businesses actually understand those relationships and those drivers of value. And what I'd say to people when they're setting up businesses and founders and early stage businesses, particularly if they're focused in the impact space or impact is a part of their story, is you can't try to be everything. You can't try to do everything. You need to understand where does your business fit and where are you relevant to the world and where is the world indeed relevant to you. And if you spend the time thinking about those things, and there's a process that you can follow that's reasonably well structured now, that will help you get on top of what matters and focus.
And Charlie, could you talk to us a bit about where Mishcon brings in purpose and their approach to clients and partners?
Well, I don't think it's exclusive to Mishcon, but in the modern workforce, people really care about the impact they're having, and an organization that wants to recruit and retain good people also needs to really care about it as well. So, for example, with our lawyers, we allocate a certain amount of their time every year to do impactful work or pro bono work. But actually, more than that, in supporting the number of entrepreneurs and investors doing intrepid things that we do every year, we have a genuine double impact on the world, and we're helping enable and facilitate people to have a genuine double impact on the world. And it feels good. And if you're an investor, what a privilege to be able to make an investment that's tax favored with a prospect of a decent financial return, but also know that you're doing good for the world. You know, that's the kind of investor, you know, I want to be, and that's the type of investor I've tried to be with my own handful of angel investments.
Well, Alex and Charlie, thank you so much for opening up this evening and for giving your insights across everything that we're going to be discussing tonight. So can we please have a round of applause for the insights that have just been shared? We are now about to kick off the first of our founder presentations once we have set the stage again. And I'm delighted to bring to the stage Ed Lewis-Pratt and Will Chapman, who are the founders of Roarsome.
Good evening, everyone. Please raise your hand if you are a parent. Now keep your hand up if you are struggling to get your kids off their screens.
Screen time is directly linked to crisis levels of anxiety, depression, and suicide amongst young teens. Kids are not spending time outside like we all used to when we were kids. In fact, 75% of kids spend less time outdoors these days than prisoners. We're trying to change that. My name's Will.
And I'm Ed.
We're the founders of Roarsome.
Backed by the creator of Paw Patrol, we are developing our own character IP, inspiring kids to get outdoors through adventure-driven apparel and experiences. Our award-winning character-themed clothing spans multiple outdoor pursuits, including ski, swim, surf, skate, and everything is made from recycled plastic bottles. We have already recycled over 1 million plastic bottles into purpose-led kids' clothing. We've grown 2,500% in 6 years, and we managed to achieve just under 1 million revenue last year. We're already 100% up year on year for this year, tracking towards 2 million. And we're forecasting things to really pick up and go to 5 million and 10 million the year after that.
We're working with some of the biggest brands in the world. Retail partners include Harrods, Selfridges, Mytheresa, Bloomingdale's, Nordstrom, and Macy's, all placing bigger orders with us every year. Sell-through is so strong that we're being offered takeover opportunities for creative retail displays, like a custom-branded ski lift that we installed in Harrods last winter. We're also being approached by licensed partners such as Paw Patrol, Spider-Man, NASA, Bluey, and Peter Rabbit for co-branded product spanning multiple product categories globally, which is a multi-million-pound opportunity on its own.
So, we are now raising 1.5 million for just over 20% of our company. We launched the fundraise in February this year, and we've already secured 1 million. So there's 500,000 left on the table, which we're hoping some of you will participate in this evening. The funds will be used for international scale, investing into stock, new 3PL warehousing across the EU and the US, which are our fastest growing markets. We are launching our best-selling accessory products for the first time on Amazon. And probably the biggest advert ever for our brand, we're opening a pop-up shop in Gatwick Airport North Terminal, where I think over that period of 6 months, we'll see 10 million holiday makers and adventure seekers will come face-to-face with our brand. And last but not least, in partnership with the creator of Paw Patrol, we have actually created our own animated character series, and he is pitching that currently as his new TV show to Disney, Netflix, and more.
Kidswear is a $250 billion industry and the fastest growing apparel segment worldwide. What's the next bit? Oh, the next one. For context, one particular brand, back one slide, called Reya, which you can't see on the screen, but they're doing 150 million euros a year globally with a similar product positioning price point to ours with no character element. We worked with a third-party research company called Kids Know Best, who found that 80% of kids preferred our outfits to theirs. So we think that represents 100 times growth opportunity for us from our current position, and potentially 100 times return on any investment made today.
So our aim is to become the biggest outdoor kids brand in the world, and we would love you to join our adventure. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We missed a few slides.
So I think they had, yeah.
Thank you very much, Will and Ed. That was great, and thank you for starting off the pitches. We're now going to open up to the floor for any questions. We've got roaming mics, so just put your hand up if you'd like to ask a question. Yes, can I get a mic to the lady in the black dress, please?
Yeah, we might have to pass this one down.
Hi.
Hello.
Great pitch, thanks. I think you said that your leading competitor was Reya clothing. And that you'd like to overtake them. How do your prices compare to them?
Yeah, we're a very similar price point in the market. They've been around for 30 years. They're a Finnish brand, so they obviously have time and kind of legacy on their side, whereas we're very much a new company. But as Will said earlier, we did a research poll with a company, and I think it was 70-80% kids that they would rather be dressed as a dinosaur and a unicorn, because why wouldn't you?
Hey, great pitch. Beyond, just regarding the starting point, beyond it being clothes designated for outdoors, is there anything that, beyond that kind of sways kids towards outdoor activities in the brand?
Yes, so the brand is built on 3 pillars, as you can see here. So apparel is what we've been focused on to date, but in the background, we're working on developing the character IP, which we see as a massive opportunity. And the concept we've got for that is trying to simplify environmental themes into something which is more approachable for young families. Because if we can get kids into the conversation, the climate conversation earlier, then they'll care more for the planet as they grow up. So that's the second one. The third one is experiences. So right at the beginning, one way that we tried to stand out was when we went to these trade shows, we pitched to buyers. We bought an American school bus, which you can see here, and we turned it into our mobile showroom. So that was our stand outside these trade shows rather than being packed in with everyone else. And then during COVID, there wasn't any trade shows, there wasn't any travel. So we repositioned the bus into something that families could book for luxury glamping. Even though we were still fairly unknown as an apparel brand, we thought, let's test whether people would trust us enough to book those kind of experiences. We sold out every single date. We then bought a second bus, sold out every single date, then bought a third bus. So we have a fleet of these American school buses that we now use to partner with amazing outdoor destinations around the UK and potentially further afield to host our own outdoor experiences and bring the whole ethos of the brand to life.
Ed and Will be in the networking area, but we've probably got time for one more really quick question. This gentleman, where do you make your clothes?
So we're currently manufacturing all of our waterproof outdoor in China. We make a lot of our other stuff closer to home in Portugal or Turkey, our GOTS certified organic cottons. We're diversifying our supply chain all the time, but it's not something we shy away from. It's fantastic quality, and when we get it over here, it's built to last, so it gets handed down through generations so that more kids can make more memories in them.
On that point as well, we have a resale partner, an amazing resale partner actually, called Little Loop, who makes it very easy for our customers to sell on old clothes to new customers, new adventurers, and by doing that, they then get a discount on any new orders that they place with us.
Thank you very much, Ed and Will.
Thank you very much.
So presenting next, we have David James from Iris Solar.
Good evening, everybody. Let's see if this works. I'm still talking about kids' clothes. Okay, there we go. Good evening, everyone. I'm David James. I'm the founder and CEO of Iris Solar Technology. Our product is outside. You may have walked past it. That's it lurking in the background there, the Iris system. It's been described as the new benchmark in portable solar technology. To understand the product, think of it like a power bank that never runs out of charge. The reason being there are solar panels on top of the product, a key feature being that they track the sun during the day to generate 40% more output versus fixed panels. We expect to release the product in Q4 2025. That's principally what the raise is going to be used for. In terms of what can you charge, anything laptop size or smaller. There are USB outlets on the back, which can be used to charge a laptop via the PD system. Also, smartphones and tablets can be charged using our product. I'm joined here today in the rafters and in the networking afterwards by the 4 founding members of Iris, Adam Best, CTO, in the audience, and also Richard Earle and Chris Horn, 2 senior engineers who've spent a lot of time working on this endeavor. Those of you who are active and engaged in the climate tech UK space may recognize Richard and Chris's names. They've held prominent positions in other successful energy tech startups in the UK, so we're hoping to repeat that success with Iris. We're a made in Britain company. We're proudly made in the UK. We always have been. All of the development work took place in the UK. And with reference to the current tariff situation, we always thought this was going to happen. So we planned everything this way. We're a UK-based firm. I don't want to say I told you so. It's not the right time for that. Anyway, we plan to export to the key markets for high solar potential, marked by the orange and yellow parts of the world map there. You see the whole United States and Australia are in those zones. Those are key export markets for us. And we do have an Australian legal entity as well. We're a UK company which owns an Australian sub, which helps massively with compliance and export issues to Australia. So proudly made in the UK. There's a few uses of this item, very diverse application, electricity. The obvious B2C case is as an outdoor product for the outdoor activity enthusiast, festival goers, campers, van lifers, those kind of people. That's quite a big market. We estimate about 20 billion total addressable in that B2C space, but more exciting than that, particularly from the investor point of view, is the much bigger B2B application for our product. So to give some context, the United Nations expects to spend $1 trillion by 2030 on energy access to provide energy access to underserved communities globally. Also, we see a lot of potential partnering with other businesses that have released off-grid, power-hungry hardware. Starlink is a notable example. That's a popular satellite internet service which needs something to power it. We think the Iris system is the perfect thing to do that, and that's one amongst many in the growing IoT off-grid space. The economics of the B2C side of things, it is a premium product. The retail price is just over £1,000. The weighted average selling price we've achieved is £851. That's on our pre-orders we've been taking. We expect to release in Q4. We've been taking direct-to-consumer pre-orders thus far. On the B2B side of things, the pricing is a little different. The customers are expected to pay a nominal charge to cover the cost of the hardware that we send them, and after that, we charge a daily and monthly power-as-a-service subscription fee. That's our recurring revenue model. And on the side of the screen there, you see a little glimpse into our web-based app. The units are all geotagged. They have a GPS chip in them, and the units communicate their location back to our server. So us as the manufacturer and any B2B clients we have can monitor their IRIS fleet in real time using that. We're raising £750,000 for 21% equity. For those who don't like dividing things, that's 2.75 million pre-money. The principal use of funds is product development on the pie chart there, with other things for legal, IP, and marketing you would expect, but principally it's to get from the late prototype stage we're at now, which you can see outside in the foyer, into full-scale production. And just to stress the point, we're an SEIS pre-approved company. This is EIS Investment Forum. There is some SEIS allowance remaining that comes with a 50% tax rebate, not the 30% on EIS, which is standard. And with that, I believe that was approximately 5 minutes, and we will go to Q&A.
It was 5 minutes. Thank you very much, David. So I'd like to open up the floor again to some questions. The gentleman in the middle, if we could get a microphone to him, please.
Thank you, great pitch. What protections have you around your design, intellectual property, or other aspects of the novelty of what you've created?
So we have 2 approved registered designs in the UK. That's for the shape and design of the unit itself, which is integral to how it functions. There's a patent pending on the legs, and part of our raise is dedicated to filing a boatload more patents on every individual innovative aspect. So in terms of numbers, if that's your question, we expect between 5 and 6 additional patents to be filed. But so far, designs and a patent pending on the legs, with more to come.
Next question.
Thank you. What is your strategy for selling your products in underdeveloped countries? I saw that you shipping your product to Malawi. Are you engaging with government directly, or are you going via institutions such as the United Nations or others?
Thank you. We're doing it all right now. To lift the veil on the Malawi thing, that's a regional charity that's purchased a small sample of units to go out there. So the economics of that is that they're a charity. They use their funds to purchase charitable-minded goods from us as a manufacturer. But we're also talking directly, as you suggest, to governments and NGOs like the UN as well.
I think we have time for one more quick question, just to the gentleman in the green jumper, please.
Great presentation, David.
Thank you.
Love the iris. So, weight, dimensions, and capacity, as well as, is there a plan to scale up into a larger product with a higher capacity?
Yes, there is. So the original design for the unit came in 5 different variations, T1 up to T5, the size of a house, to provide power for the whole house. We focused on the T1 based on, well, 2 things. The fact that it's easier to get the smaller product out, but importantly, there was so much demand in the device charging space. I mean, who doesn't want to charge their phone and laptop? So the initial release is the T1 size. We do approximately anticipate every couple of years bringing out increasingly large versions of this. So the T2 is scheduled for 26, maybe 27 release, and onwards from there. So yes, we do plan to release larger items.
Capacity, dimensions, weight.
I'm really sorry, I'm going to have to
we'll be in the foyer,
there.
Don't worry. The engineers are here, we can cover all that.
Perfect. Thank you so much, David. Round of applause.
Thank you.
So our next presentation will be from Caroline Haynes, who will be talking about Granyt.
All right. So, hello, my name is Caroline, and I'm from a company called Granyt, not Granny Tea, as a marketing agency said to me. And we are a climate fintech platform. I'm here with my co-founder, Bernard. Quick one on us, we're both infrastructure, economics, and corporate finance nerds, and we decided to leave the world of infrastructure finance to try and join the climate revolution. So this is the problem that we are trying to fix at a very macro level. So you may have noticed in the UK, there's a very low take-up of rooftop solar. So actually fewer than 9% of commercial buildings have rooftop solar on the roof. And that's sort of cloud cuckoo land, because energy prices in the UK, specifically commercial energy prices, are very high. So they're about 3 times per kilowatt hour higher than the US, about 2 times higher than Europe. And so with solar, what you can do is you can actually slash that cost by 40%. With batteries, you can take it higher. So it's a conundrum as to why take-up is so low in the UK. We think one of the reasons is there is a very specific pain point if you're a business. It's very difficult to buy solar. So the first thing you have to do is you have to go and find a solar installer. There are 600 of them commercially. They're all sort of new. It's very difficult to gauge who's good, who's not. They come to you and they give you a sense of basically what the size is. You don't know how many kilowatt hours you need. You have no idea whether they're selling for the roof or for your bottom line. So you get a price from them, and then you have to go and get finance. And finance is never very easy in the commercial and industrial space. So if you go to a financial institution, the first thing they will say to you is, can we have 3 different quotes, please? So you go back out to your 600 commercial installers. And if you're fighting national insurance, you're fighting tariffs, you're trying to keep your head above water, this is just not something that you're really going to think, well, you're going to think about it, but it gets so annoying that you just put it aside. So that's where we come in. We're trying to be, I think the best analogy is like the IBM of commercial renewables. We don't manufacture the hardware, but we're trying to make the whole buying experience really easy. So the first thing that we do is we've changed the sequence. We built out a technology platform, use a lot of data to do this. So the first thing is we give the business a sense of what the system size should be using their energy, their half-hourly energy, a lot of data to come in. We then can provide them a lease-to-own facility that we offer directly, and I'll go into that. We then have a whole caliber of highly vetted installer companies that we've gone through and checked everything. We have them on very tight contracts. And then we do the ongoing maintenance. So they just have to go to one supplier and get the whole thing. So to give you a little bit of sense of what we've been building, so the whole thing is covered by the platform and technology. So on the first side, we use satellite imagery and AI to come up with the estimate, so someone can call up and say, we're interested in this, and we can come up with some sizing, some price very quickly. The second thing, as I mentioned, we have our own lease-to-own facility, so we've negotiated that with Peak, which is part of BlackRock. We are the only originator in the UK for commercial solar. We have our own underwriting model that has a lot of third-party APIs coming in. So it means we can make that decision within an hour. No more 3 quotes and things like that. And there's some other aspects for the other 2 elements, but for the sake of time, I won't do that. So in terms of traction, we only opened our doors in November of last year. Since that point in time, we've issued over about £7.5 million worth of quotes. We're finding conversions take between 3 to 4 months, which is not surprising because there has been a little bit of macroeconomic turbulence. So the first conversions should land in May, and we're going through and doing quite a big direct campaign now that we've checked the sequence works with customers. So final one, so to date, we did a pre-seed of $630,000, which was from One Planet Capital, which is a great VC firm that we've been working with. They were our lead, Ada Venture Scout Fund, and Zinc VC, and a few amazing angels. What we're doing with this raise is we're coming back out for about $750,000. That allows us to further build out some of the tech components that I talked about, extend the runway a little bit because of the funny period that we're in with conversions, and to really double down on direct marketing. So any of you interested in sustainability, obviously I hope that you realize this hits the nose. But the second thing I'd like to say is if you care about growth of companies in the UK, which is a big narrative, this really is a play to unlock that growth as well. Thank you.
I just wanted to make sure that I can see if there are questions on the top row as well. So whoever's got the mic, also point it out. So yes, would anyone like to ask Caroline a question?
I've got a question up the top over here.
Thanks very much. Love the pitch, love the space. I just wondered, on those commercials, you talked about a 40% reduction in energy bills. So the numbers you put up, if a company's going for it, I think you said the average lease on the example you gave was £1,700 a month. Do you know what the average energy bill drop is for that company, and what the payback period would be if it's not more than that £1,700 immediately?
Yeah, indeed. So that great question. That's part of our underwriting, so that we can only offer the leased product to companies that actually make sufficient savings so that they can pay the lease and make some savings. So what we're seeing, it's hard, just to give you some guesstimate ballparks, a lot of businesses are up at £4,000 to £5,000 per month for their electricity bills. So if you take them down 40% of that, and you've got a lease of about £1,200, it tends to give people about £400 or £500 a year, one of headspace. Obviously, if energy prices increase, essentially what you're doing is you're fixing part of your electricity bill, and so those savings increase.
Thank you very much. Any other questions?
Great presentation, thank you. I own and lease industrial buildings, and the ones I own have solar panels on, and your numbers are great. It's better than that for us because it faces the right direction. The reality, though, of most industrial estates in the country are leased, and the contracts require the occupants to return the building, but it's the occupants who will get the fiscal benefit of the energy, not the owners. And my experience of owners is they really don't care. So what's your solution to approaching and bridging that complicated gap? Because it's a big challenge.
It is. We make it dead easy. So this is like car financing. As long as the tenant has tenancy over the period that they will have the lease, it's fine.
Thank you very much. And we've got time for one more quick question.
Should we have this one down here in the middle? Or come down?
Thank you, Caroline. I wanted to ask you if, do you have anyone in mind in terms of what sort of companies you target that you want them to reach out to you for, let's say, quotations, or are leaving it open across for everyone while you're at the stage of sort of still exploring?
Yeah, so as the previous gentleman asked about the savings, they have to be businesses that are very heavy in terms of electricity sort of costs. So they tend to be manufacturing, food production, sort of the stuff in industrial parks.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Caroline. And finally, to pitch this evening, we have Carnot engines, who will be presented by George Hunter.
Where's the clicker? Well, you've seen all the slides now. So. Good evening, everyone. I'm Francis Lempp, actually one of the co-founders of Carnot. And in a nutshell, we've developed the world's most efficient combustion engine. And our goal as a company really is to reduce fuel costs and reduce emissions for the heavy-duty markets. What do I mean by heavy-duty markets? I'm talking about engines that are used in maritime, off-grid power, and heavy goods vehicles. And these guys spend hundreds of billions every single year just on fuel. Add to that the fact that they've got mounting social and regulatory pressure to decarbonize, with essentially no solutions available to help them do that. The market, essentially, despite the fact that it's been completely changing for the last couple of years, the three biggest players in the space selling engines haven't changed their core product in the last 50 years. And if we look at some of the more boutique, high-end specialist providers, they're essentially still offering the same thing, turning over billions every year, and leaving our customers with no solutions and no options to go forward. So what is it that they're actually selling? This is a modern-day diesel engine, and essentially it's woefully inefficient. They operate on average at about 35% efficiency, and that's because we build them out of aluminium and steel, which have enormous thermal losses and ultimately lead to really, really poor inefficiencies. Our core product, which is the world's most efficient engine, is made from high-temperature materials like ceramics and superalloys that essentially don't need any cooling. We're able to eliminate thermal losses, achieve game-changing efficiencies of 72%. And what does that mean for a customer? Well, doubling the efficiency basically means halving their fuel costs. We've also made the engine multi-fuel capable, and again, to a customer, what that means is use any fuel, change any time. To put this technology into context, the current world record for engine efficiency is around 53%, I believe, and the lowest fuel consumption achieved is 184. So we are well on track by the end of this year to smash those world records out of the park with 72% efficiency and 120 grams per kilowatt hour. So before you start thinking that this technology is a bit of a dream and snake oil, back in 2022, we launched a proof of concept prototype that proved this technology works. So we achieved our ultimate goal, validated the technology. We also proved that it's manufacturable and patentable, securing our national patents back in 2024 in several key territories. Since then, this is the prototype that we've been used to sort of iron out the kinks of the concept. We've moved on to our phase 2 engine, which is essentially our core product, 50 kilowatt single cylinder generator that we've been running on diesel and hydrogen. This is going to be the world record breaker. This is the one to deliver efficiency targets, durability targets, and multi-fuel capability. Our goal over the next 12 months is to put this in the field with customers. We've already secured several paid customer-funded projects, a pipeline through the next year. The most notable one is that we are the first company in the UK to deploy a hydrogen auxiliary engine on board a ship. Our go-to-market strategy is quite simple, really. We're going for super low barrier market entry, which is generators. They're easy to package, very low barrier, super high volume. From there, we've been developing higher power versions of that again, we can enter those same markets, and we can springboard from that into the heavy-duty vehicle market before doing multi-megawatt power solutions for things like main propulsion systems on board ships. The way we're going to make this is actually quite straightforward. We're going to lean on an existing supply chain that already serves the entire combustion engine market, using tier 1 suppliers to produce the bulk of our parts. And on the sales front, we want to be front-facing to customers, which is the largest portion of the value chain, and we're making good headway on that, already having secured 3,000 in signed pre-order commitments for our engines. Just taking a quick look at the sales forecast, showing that we are well on track for hitting those targets, exceeding that for our pilot line. Timeline, so having basically proven that this tech works, we want to deploy customer pilots, so we're raising 5 million to do that. 4.5 of that is already secured and signed on for by 2 major strategic investors. One of them is the 5th largest global shipping fleet. After which, we're looking to raise 50 million in about 18 months. That's to establish our pilot line and start getting products into the market. Going forward from that, we're really looking at project and customer-based finance to bring new products to market and scale production. And what that means is, essentially, we don't have to raise 80 million to build a factory. We can use a supply chain that's already there. So alongside me, I've got 2 other co-founders. Archie Watts-Farmer, which is sitting in the front row. He's got 15 years experience delivering major aerospace projects for Rolls-Royce. If you like the F-35 jet, feel free to say thank you. Got Nadir, who's got a history of patented concepts in the combustion engine space, and in his spare time tunes his M3. And I'm a recovering quantum physicist. And backing us on the board is experts from both industry, but also entrepreneurs with successfully previously exited startups themselves. And really, behind the scene with the team, we've got some of the biggest eggheads in the industry. I mean, we've got the former head of design for Mercedes HPP, Vikram Nair, who delivered the P1 McLaren before going to Red Bull Powertrains, and Fabio Messitano, who has worked for just about every Formula One team under the sun. So thank you very much for listening. I'm joined by George Hunter, our head of sales, and my co-founder and CEO, Archie. So if you've got any questions, please just come and have a chat.
So again, we open up to questions. So we already have someone right there. Yes, please.
Hi, thank you for your great talk. My question is, just looking at the renewables for a second, I've studied for the last 10 years. Solar, wind, electric, they're all interruptible power supplies. They rely on mineral extraction from 1,000 miles away in Africa, and they're also intermittent as well, so they're not consistent. My question looking at this combustion engine is, how can this engine not be applied just for cars, vehicles, but also can it be used and applied to be a more efficient way in domestic housing, in buildings as well, and actually show to the renewable sector that here is real uninterruptible power supply, which is not reliant on minerals and conflict issues. Thank you.
Thanks for that question. I think take a step back. We're not focused on cars. We're focused on heavy-duty markets. So that's things like trucking, shipping, and generators. So in terms of sort of domestic housing, I mean, that's grid-based. That's not a core market for us. Where we really fit into the kind of sustainable fuels aspect is that we've designed this engine to run on anything, right? So whereas if you're a shipping fleet looking to decarbonize, you've got battery electric, which is a bit of a non-starter. You could be looking at fuel cells, but then you're beholden to hydrogen and you're subject to the supply of that, the cost of that, etc. What we're offering is a familiar technology that you can buy now, operate on diesel with significant emissions reduction, and have the kind of safety net that you could convert that to methanol or ammonia or e-fuels or hydrogen based on what that price looks like going forward. So we're sort of putting ourselves away from which type of fuel is going to be the fuel of the future and looking more at what our customers want, which is, okay, how do we provide them a technology that they're familiar with and that allows them to transition at their own pace?
Thank you very much. Any other questions?
I've got a couple.
This lady at the front, please. Yeah, go for it.
Thank you. Great pitch. I'm just trying to understand kind of what the basic principle is that allows your engine to be more efficient than a normal combustion engine. Is it that you're just improving the materials so you don't need to lose energy to cooling, or is there another kind of basic principle that you're working with?
Okay, so thanks for your question. If we boil it down, a regular engine, steel and aluminium, fuel goes bang, creates a lot of heat. That heat is way above the servicing temperatures of those materials, so you have to cool it. So everybody knows you need to put coolant in your car engine, and what you're doing is you are removing heat that could be converted into mechanical power, right? So our engine, it's a fundamental redesign of the combustion engine. Part of it is that we use high-temperature materials. That's part of our patent portfolio. And what we're trying to do basically is get rid of the cooling system. So that heat that we're trying to reject, actually, we're trying to use that and extract it as mechanical power. So essentially, we're trying to get rid of the cooling system. It sounds a lot simpler than it is. There's quite a lot of work that goes involved in that. And part of that is designing the engine with a completely different set of materials.
Thank you. I think we've got time for one more really quick question.
Do we have one down here?
Yes, the gentleman. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a very quick question. Can you retrofit the engine, for example, into that truck?
Yes, basically.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Francis. So to round off this evening, we have another panel, and it's to explore the benefits of EIS. So all the companies that you've had pitching tonight are EIS eligible, and as Ira Solar mentioned, they are also SEIS eligible. So we want to take the opportunity to really dig into what that scheme offers. So please can I welcome to the stage Harvey Knight and Hare. I'm going to swap.
Thank you, Daisy.
So I'm joined with Hare from the EIS Association. Welcome. You are a board member and also you chair the EISA Tax Committee. And also joining us is Harvey Knight, CEO and founder of Sustainable Wealth Group, who has worked with founders and investors to make the most of what the EIS scheme has to offer. So I thought to just kick it off, keep it simple. Philip, could you just give us a brief explanation of what EIS is and why it was created?
Thank you for that warm welcome. Yes, I'm not ashamed to declare that I've been doing EIS for 30 years. Because EIS is 30 years old. It's derived from a business startup scheme started by Mrs. Thatcher's government in 1981. Been through a few changes, but since 1994, it's been established and fairly consistent since then. That's when I started my career, and I've learnt it and done EIS ever since. The design of the scheme is that to provide private capital into companies which otherwise would struggle to get money. So it gives a tax incentive to the investors, the individual investors, to risk their money. And the tax reliefs are very, very generous. So there's a 30% upfront income tax relief for your investment. You can also, after 3 years, if you exit successfully, that capital gain is tax-free, and that could be a huge amount of tax relief, especially capital gains rates are going up. It's particularly valuable. There's downside protection as well, so if you sadly make a loss, because some of these are risky ventures and they don't make it, you actually get further tax relief for that loss. So if you're an additional tax rate payer, you could probably cover 60% or so of your investment by tax relief. In 2012, then they brought in the baby brother of EIS, Seed EIS, SEIS, and that gives you a 50% upfront tax relief, and that is for the startups that are 3 years old or less, and a smaller amount can be raised by those companies. But again, you've got the same benefits for capital gains exemption on an exit, and you've got loss relief also if it makes a loss.
Thank you very much, Philip. And Harvey, you're a newcomer to a certain extent to this space, and you're really using EIS to push the sustainability idea that you have. When did you get involved in EIS, and what made you decide to build a business around it?
Thank you, Daisy, and thank you everyone for being here. It's great to see how far we've come in the last sort of 18 months. It's great to see everyone here supporting the movement. But I first got exposure to EIS when I first set my business up when I was 14, and I was looking at different ways of raising capital. And that was my first exposure to EIS. And then since then, I've worked on a number of different projects, especially at the corporate finance house that I was at. And yeah, since then, we've been working with a lot of impactful startups, especially companies like Carnot, very hardware-based technologies, even consumer brands these days. There's great benefits associated to investors in putting this capital in, but actually mitigating a lot of risk exposure to it. This is where the much-needed capital is required to bring through these breakthrough technologies, these innovations, to really transform these industries.
And Philip, since EIS has come onto the scene, how have you seen it being used differently? So tonight we're talking about it in the sustainability context, but how has it benefited the startup ecosystem?
Yes, it has provided much needed capital for these startups. The sort of industries that we see qualifying now have changed. I mean, back in 1994, a lot of retail and manufacturing and so on. There's less of that, obviously. There's a lot of technology, a lot of AI, as Charlie was saying earlier on. And we're seeing also a lot of interest in the technology behind sustainable. The thing is that actually production of green energy is not a qualifying trade, but the technology behind it can be if it's done right. So if you create intellectual property that you then license, that's all right. Or if you create kit that you then sell, that's all right. But leasing that kit doesn't qualify either. So people have to, if they want to raise this money under these tax advantage schemes, they have to sort of fit within the rules, which might constrain them a little bit, and they have to keep within those rules for 3 years in order for the tax reliefs to be kept. But what we're seeing is probably 75% of the companies that we deal with in my firm are technology-based, and most of them have got a sustainability side to them.
And Harvey, how have you seen the EIS scheme really benefit some of the startups that you've been part of raising money for?
Yeah, I mean, we see it time and time again. I mean, one of our most successful stories was a company called GT Wings. Some of you probably met them at our previous events. Hardware-based technology, deep tech. We've had a lot of deep tech companies very focused around the science. You know, sometimes these take 2, 3, 4 years in the research and development phase. You know, that's biodegradable plastic technology, ultra-thin solar technology, and yeah, there's numerous case studies. And I mean, even some of the most successful companies, such as Revolut, Deliveroo, Zoopla, all these really successful companies, household names, used EIS funding at the very early stages. And that's why we've seen some of our international investors get quite jealous of the tax benefits. And it's known around the world to be one of the most successful government-backed initiatives.
And you have now, as of this evening, announced that you've split the financial fundraising part of the company into Sustainable Wealth Group. Why was this an important move?
Well, you can only go so far, right? Having a media brand and supporting startups and the investments, and we've done a phenomenal job. And I'm very grateful for everyone here today, because without your support, without your input, we wouldn't be here today. But it just goes to show, how far we've come. But the purpose behind Sustainable Wealth Group was to provide a more structured, more high-value, high-impact platform and service for high net worths and also family offices. We as a business want to grow into developing EIS structures, fund structures to provide a more diverse approach, but also allow our clients to tap into more diverse asset classes across private credit, private equity, and also real estate as well.
And I'm not sure, but in this audience, there may be investors who haven't invested in EIS companies. Philip, it'd be great to explain what that process looks like and what they can expect in terms of the process with the tax relief.
Yes, so you invest in shares in a company, so you have to subscribe for new shares in a company, which you can either do directly or through EIS funds, which Harvey's referred to. Now, those companies, most of them will have gone to HMRC and asked for an advance assurance that this is a qualifying company, which helps them obviously sell their shares to the investors. It's not actually necessary, but it usually gives a lot of comfort. Then, after the investment's made, the company then has to apply for individual tax certificates for each one of those investors, which means it gets a stamp of HMRC approval for that particular investment. They give you that certificate, and when you've got that, then you can claim your tax relief. You can claim it in the tax year in which the shares are issued to you, or the previous year, or across both of them, whichever's best for you. And you do that on your tax return, or you amend a previously submitted tax return.
Thank you very much. And I think that this level of clarity is really great, so everyone can go into conversations tonight knowing exactly how those conversations will look. So thank you very much, Philip and Harvey, for giving us a quick rundown on EIS. And I would like to say that's the end of this session in here, and we are going to head to networking very soon. I'd like to say thank you to all the companies that have pitched tonight. I look forward to seeing everyone discussing these ideas. And you will be able to find all the founders, as mentioned, in the networking space. There are flags, so go and find them, have those conversations. Finally, thank you to our sponsors, Mishcon, Reya, EQ Investors, and Aqualibra. And lastly, I would like to thank you all for coming, and for the team at Sustainable Times who have put together the event tonight. Can we please get a round of applause for the whole team? Now, please, just go enjoy the rest of your evening. Take the excitement of the future we're all building in this room, and a future that we can truly put in reach. So good luck, everyone, tonight, and I hope you get something from this evening.